The ruling on the case is that he has double allegiance, and so he is not supposed to be MP. Now, the case is in court. Somebody has taken him to court, okay? So the case is in court. We understand that somebody elsewhere wants to really address the issue and make sure that what is right is done. We understand that. It is in court. We are all moving. But then, whilst it's in court, let me just serve the people, because these people too do not deserve to have no representation in Parliament. The people of Asin North, just like it happened in Techiman South, the same should be applied here. So let me just get the opportunity, whilst it's in court, to at least serve the people. Whatever the court decides is what will stand. So if at the end of our court case you decide that I am not eligible to hold up or present myself as an MP, so be it. Then we go forward from there. The court actually released a restraining order on Judicial question to stop posing. When you say pose, what do you mean? That the person was not elected? To stop holding himself as an MP. Because of what case? Dual citizenship. When the person is a born Ghanaian, raised Ghanaian, speaks Twi to everybody else, this was it. So in this case that I would have called that there wasn't any lives lost, there wasn't any gross injustice, there was just a small issue of country affiliation or double allegiance. They refused to let him play his role for over a year and a half, Senna. For all the while that he was in court. This same court. But when 8 lives were lost, when there was a clear issue of gross injustice, they overlooked it and what? Allowed this MP to be sworn in. I ask myself, is it because Judicial question is an NDC? A lot of Ghanaians have asked themselves this question. Is it because he's an NDC? Today, people are becoming bolder. At first, when we are talking about justices, people try to summarize their issue, but people are becoming bolder. You feel that people are getting fed up. So why is it good for the goose and not good for the gander? Why is it good for Techiman South and not good for Asin North? Why should the interpretation of the Constitution always be thrown as though it is the eventual preference of whichever justice is presiding on a case? I feel the same thing is happening with this issue of vacant seats. And it is high time, and I really must commend, I am not in the place to, but I really must commend Justice Amadou for coming out to clearly interpret his own knowledge on the Supreme Court issue, because he had the opportunity, or he had the right to decide not to comment at all after dissenting from it. But he commented, and it really made so much sense to us. Senna, if I go again, I'm going to talk about the comments that our own father, Chachu Chikata, made, because he was called up to grant a few interviews on this particular case. And that is something that I want to remind Ghanaians of, and I want to quote again so that I don't make any mistake. That indeed the Constitution can be overthrown not only by people in military gowns. When they say military gowns, we know that there are coup d'etats, and the military always try to overthrow governments and ignore an entire constitution. But in this case, we are reminding Ghanaians that the Constitution cannot only be overthrown by people in military gowns, but also by people in wigs and gowns. And when we say wigs and gowns, we don't mean women who are having weddings. We mean by people who are supposed to protect the law. People who are probably lawyers or even judges. And if it goes on in this case continuously, where cases, or should I say rulings, have been made without any substantial reference to the Constitution or any reasonable backing, then you are overthrowing the Constitution. You are throwing it away. Maybe overthrow is such a very huge word, but you are throwing it away. And I really deplore or implore the justices to realize that this game of politics really ends every term or two. And that NPP is eventually going to come out of power. And I tell NDC people who are out there looking at us that if they are setting these precedents, then we should calm down. Because eventually we have 21 days to elections. So this ruling will really not have any proper effect. Because there is going to be a change of government come December 2024. But then, after it is gone, the NPP is really going to reap what they have sown. The justices in the High Court are going to reap what they have sown. So if it is good for them, if they have really been sincere, should a similar case emerge when we are indeed in power, I hope nobody will come out to interpret things differently. I really hope no one will come out to interpret things differently, because that is the precedence they've set, and that is what we are going to go in accordance with. I will just leave my comments here and then just conclude. Just conclude with a word or two. And Senna, my word won't be for the Supreme Court. It will be for the people of Ghana, especially people that we call floating voters, especially people who are not particularly within the NPP and NDC, some people like the butterfly people and the others, that aside everything that is happening, if the country should be placed first, they would really be able to compare the non-partisanship attitude of certain governments. Example like the NDC, non-partisanship attitude when we are in government, when we can decide to be in court and boldly lose a case or two, because indeed the constitution should come first. But when there is a strictly partisan attitude, that is really affecting the democracy of the people, affecting the power of the people, because indeed you have people who think there is no tomorrow. I want people to consider that when they are come to vote. I cannot talk without making reference to the December elections. I want people to consider that. People who are patriotic and think of Ghana at large, to really consider that there is a party that is healthy for this country, and there is a party that is toxic or poisonous for this country. And without wanting to give several examples, we'll just give this particular example to tell you that the NPP government is toxic and poisonous for the democracy or for the growth of the NDC. And a party like that should be removed without thinking twice, be removed entirely from this country through the election 2024. That is the only way that we can heal as a country. We can gain our self-respect and dignity back. We can reset the economy and the entire country. And I feel that the few justices that may or are looking like partisan justices will start feeling, or should I say, will start being in line with how the NPP are feeling. And eventually, when you realize that there is an overthrow, or should I say, there is a change of government through the election 2024 that is coming, you feel that the justices will also start packing by themselves, because they realize that their power or whatever supports them has left, or whoever they are backing has left. I hope that with the last statement that Justice Amadou Tanko said, that he hopes that very soon this ruling will be changed and will be rectified, because he feels, not just feels, he knows that it's a very wrong ruling. I also hope and back his statement that I hope it will change, that I hope it will be reversed, so that we know that these justices, or should I say the Supreme Court, is really now healing and taking their feet back as a non-partisan arm of government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. well, Jivatega is a Deputy National Women's Organizer of the National Democratic Congress. A few comments from those of you who are listening and also watching us. There's this one from Dr. Kofase Bifio. Salute to you and your guests. I don't know if I'm getting confused or not. Isn't it a paradox that the learned compatriots who boycotted the Constituent Assembly, comprising market women, cobblers, and masons, would today sit to interpret the simple language of those ordinary people? I need education. Good morning to you, Doc. And then there's this one from Papa Bisi who says, under Nanado's rule, our country is temporarily very, very sick. That's judging from all the negatives in every sector. For the benefit of our children, grandchildren, and generations yet unborn, we must not allow this pattern to continue. Hence, reset is needed via 7th December general election. He sent that from Accra, Papa Bisi. Thank you. There's this one also from Prince Henry Koforidua, who says, today, most of MPP MPs and communicators are running away from their own constitution. We said, the ones you have filed to contest as an independent candidate or you declare to support an independent candidate against the MPP candidates, you have forfeited your membership automatic, because today Supreme Court has affirmed Afenyomakin's case against Speaker Alban Bagbin in Parliament. Hey, wow. So what happens to the former MP who is independent candidate and now an MPP candidate? The MPP's hypocrisy is very legendary, and MPP must know what goes around will surely come around soon. That Prince Harry, thank you very much. Doc says, Senna, what a shock of a Supreme Court interpretation. So henceforth, an MPP sympathizers can enter Parliament under the cloak of NDC, especially in a constituency where NDC is strong. And then when he gets to Parliament, switch to MPP. And by this ruling, that should be okay. Nobody can do FOCO about it. In any case, if Article 97 is for the future Parliament, then why is the article in the Constitution in the first place? Because no seat is guaranteed in the next Parliament anyway. Because going into an election, every parliamentarian is inadvertently saying that the seat is not my bona fide, so re-elect me to the seat next Parliament. Thus is common knowledge and not written in the Constitution. That's Article 97. For vacation of seat cannot be for the next Parliament, because for the next Parliament, every member indirectly vacates seat for re-election anyway. What a ruling. I send that from La. Thank you for that. Let me conclude with Bruce Bonnie, who says, Ghanaians made a very big mistake when Anado started to squeeze our balls. We chose to be quiet instead of going out there to let him know that we hate what he's doing. It's not too late, my fellow Ghanaians. 7th December is just around the corner. Arise, 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 Ghana youth, for your country. That's Bruce Bonnie who sent that all the way from Sweden.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning to everybody. Good morning to my beautiful sister, Jifatega, in whom I am well pleased. I'm very happy that from a young lady who was always asking questions, now you are answering questions because you have willed yourself to be in this position in our party, and it's examples like you that make some of us proud, that some of us, the rabble rousers, can take a back seat, and there will be better rabble rousers to continue, and indeed more women. I am pleased, even though I haven't seen you in a while, but that's another story. We'll talk about it. And my big brother Kwesi, I'm happy to see you looking so well. And as for yellow, he and I have fraternities that we belong to. Two of them very agreeable. The third one, he wasn't on point. Now he has agreed with me that the balance and the nonsense that were running this country were ruining the country, and now he's on board. So you see, I think Jiva, Sana, if you had decided that you take each and every one of us singularly and asked us to do this program with you, we could have gone through a plethora of very distasteful things that has happened within the last 8 years from the point of view of the judiciary, right? Your 3-hour program, and you won't even have time to read your comments. A lot has been said, and there's a lawyer here. He said a lot from the lawyer's point of view, and one of the things that I am surprised about, because during the time that the Chief Justice was giving the ruling on the injunction, right, I heard a very shrill cry from her saying that there's a constitutional crisis. Parliament is not sitting. People are not being represented. And I was like, let me quote Kwesi, Ebe Asemini, Madam, what about the people of SAR? For 4 years, they have been denied representation with the active connivance of the Attorney General's Department. And that blood-curdling scream was never heard from the court. Indeed, the courts have been an adjutant in this actively disenfranchising not just one person, 2 people, I mean a whole group of people in this country. So let me ask a question. If it was the people of Bantama, would they have been disenfranchised up to now? Would they have been? Or if it was my hometown, Ekropon, or Chibi, would they have been disenfranchised? So, if Sena and Jifa say that it is because of where we come from, are they wrong? The Supreme Court has done nothing about it. This is the same Supreme Court that, and a lot of it, you see, I like something that Lawyer Pierre Dankwa said, that justice emanates from the people. So it is assumed that many of us who go and seek justice are not knowledgeable. Indeed, we are stupid. That's why we go to the court, okay? To be told wisdom. Many of us have heard, we have been told things by these courts that we have never heard before. That even if you try and wrap common sense around it, it still doesn't make sense. You see, the politicians in this country, some of them are very smart, and you underestimate them at your own peril. When Haruna Idrisu went to say what he said, that something was going to happen and there was going to be a consequent action in Parliament, he knew what he was doing. He knew he was going to bait the MPP into doing something. So, our brother, the majority leader, went to the court to ask for something that hadn't happened, to relief from something that hadn't happened. And the court heard it. How is that possible? Ab initio, the majority leader, so-called majority leader as he calls himself, Afenyo Makin, went to court in anticipation of something that was about to happen, and went to ask for an injunction. And the courts gave him an injunction that he didn't even ask for. I mean, how? Sana, in which jurisdiction, lawyer, please tell me, do you go to court and ask for an injunction which nominally you ask for 10 days pending the hearing of the man because you went ex parte? And for those of you who don't understand ex parte, when you go to court you are supposed to go to court for the person you are accusing to also come and answer. But the law gives certain instances in a case of an emergency that you go there and stop an action that may be, what do you guys call it? Irreparably harmful, right? Okay. So nominally the court gives you 10 days. That's what I know is the practice in Ghana. In this case, the Supreme Court gave them a perpetual injunction for something that they were anticipating was going to happen. But they bought Haruna Idrisu's bait. And subsequently, after hearing the ruling on the injunction, I don't know why anybody should be surprised when the ruling on the substantive matter came. In fact, I actually thought it was mad. And guess what? If you notice, every time there has been a vociferous condemnation of the Supreme Court, when it says unanimous FC, unanimous FC, unanimous FC, all of a sudden 2 justices appear and they makes it 5-2. It's like Real Madrid and Liverpool. Right? We're calling very painful events, by the way. So, so you see, we have gotten to the point where some of these things have become the subject of satire and comedy. And that is not what the courts should be subjecting itself to. You see, laws are not made for good people. So like Jiffa outlined, if one day a callous president decides to make Kojochu Mwafu the Chief Justice of Ghana, what will happen? If I go and sit there and I do nothing but act with the precedents that this Supreme Court have set? Which precedents they have a problem following? The odious precedent that was set by former Speaker Michael Kwe, at which time none of them found anything wrong with, has now been used by a subsequent speaker, his immediate past speaker, subsequent speaker, and they said, no, what Michael Kwe did was wrong. In fact, Michael Kwe himself has come and said, you must seek purposive interpretation of what is purposive. What is that supposed to mean? That is the reason why I can't say if you are eating the hand of a monkey, make sure you are looking at your own hand, because it's the same digits. What they did 4 years ago has been done to them in plural, triplicate. And now they are complaining. Look, I know, and I'm saying it here, the MPP have done all kinds of things, offered bags of money to the people concerned, and they are saying, we don't want. Because when we were being abused, and I'm talking about the MPs, you were sitting right there. At a point in time, they put out a publication, Amamle Morrison and the Suhum MP had changed their mind, all sorts of, and they came out and said, you know what, you people stop wasting our time. Fact of the matter is that what has happened is a result of what you did. And it is the reason why we caution that if you are in a position of responsibility, do not use capriciousness. Because if you use capriciousness, you will find yourself a victim of your own capriciousness one day. For those of you who are students of history, there were two gentlemen who, during the French Revolution, came up with an ingenious way of executing people. They called it the guillotine. Right? They put your head on and drop a metal, sharpened metal, basically a knife, from a height, and the gravity takes your head off. That's how they killed Marie Antoinette. And I know your next question is coming. How did they die? The same guillotine. At a point in time, they had killed so many people that people got fed up with them and they killed them too. Same way. Those two gentlemen were called Robespierre and Danton. So, when that is where the expression, the taste of your own medicine came from. So, one fine day, after these judges, all 20-something of them have retired, there may come a justice, Chief Justice. And when I stroll in with my motorcade, war. Because it will be precedent after precedent. I've not even decided to legislate yet. Precedent after precedent after precedent after precedent, citing them. And by the time you realize this whole country would have been thrown in no problem. Is it necessary? Do we have to go there? Do we have to go there? But you see, people, one of the most avid historians of our country's journey through its politics is sitting here. We don't seem to learn anything. We don't seem to learn anything. The judiciary in this country must learn from the past. I won't say much more about what I'm saying. He who has ears, let him hear. Because wrongdoing and score settling in this country has caused us a lot of problems. And nobody should offer the opportunity for people to settle scores in a time when the political actors change. Because in this country, I was young then, I saw people pouring black label whiskey and champagne down a drain because they didn't want the soldiers to come and see it. I saw people burning wax cloth, what they call dumas, burning it because they didn't want the soldiers to come and see it. I saw people going to hide their vehicles on their village farms because they didn't want the soldiers to come and see it. But if we are not careful, the next revolution will be a revolution of the youth. The young people who will not be as disciplined as the military. Because it has happened elsewhere. You see, when James Jachikwesin's case happened, right? His lawyers petitioned the court to allow him to serve because they didn't want the citizens of Asin North to be disenfranchised without representation was mooted by his lawyers. And the Supreme Court said no. So since when have the Supreme Court been so concerned about the lack of representation of the people? In any case, there's a law in this country. If an MP dies or is incapacitated 3 months to the election, the people are not represented anyway. And we have far gone past 3 months. So, what was all that bellicose concern about the representation? What was it about? And when I heard, when I was listening to the judge's verdict being read out by the Chief Justice, I hearkened back to the days when I was a child, when we were misbehaving in the kitchen or something, and my mom would just say, it was almost like that kind of cadence. The cadence was all wrong. the emotional, the cadence that came was so emotional and didn't seem to me reasoned. And if I'm wrong, what Amadou Tanko wrote in his dissent is right there. And if you all remember what Alban Bagbin said, Speaker Bagbin said in his media event, said that as far as he is concerned, the judges are going to say something that one day can be overturned. Because the law even provides for you, after a ruling from the Supreme Court, to go back and ask them to change their ruling. And in this country it has happened. Hasn't it happened? When a certain group of judges sat on a case and determined it one way, the Chief Justice came back and paneled a different set of people and it went the other way. And I am talking about a case, a criminal case. We all know what case it was. When a judge wanted to start a case de novo, which means start afresh, the appeals court had granted him permission to start afresh. The Supreme Court came back and said no. Reviewed it. So, what Speaker Bagbin was saying, look, there is a reason why the framers of the ordinary people who framed the Constitution gave us 3 separate arms of government who should work together but who should not be bullying each other. So I'm going to do my job, you do yours. You do you, I do me. This business of wedding where you haven't been asked, and senior jurists, senior law lecturers, including an ex-Chief Justice, has said that matter belongs to the High Court. 2, not just one. Actually, I say 2 former Chief Justices, an acting Chief Justice and a former Chief Justice have said that matter belongs to the High Court. All of them cannot be wrong. So, my caution to all of us is that in 21 days, it is most likely that power will change hands. And when it does, some of us are going to expect, because as for me, I'm shamelessly partisan. So we are going to expect that some of the precedents, not all, not the lack of representation, I don't want that. Some of the precedents that this Supreme Court has set, should be carried out. And then let's see what happens